Hi, I'm Austin Fit Magazine's Coach Carrie, and I'm also an ambassador for Specialized Women. And today, we're going to go through the process of changing a flat tire, which, I know it, you know it, is probably the most disheartening thing that can happen during a ride or during a race. But with some practice and a little bit of patience, it doesn't have to be as hard as it sounds. So today, I'm going to teach you how to change the more difficult of the wheels, which is your back tire. And it's more difficult because you actually have to take the chain off. So yeah, your hands are going to get a little dirty, but that's okay. We ride bikes because it makes us feel tough anyway. So I have a flat tire. Wah, wah. So what I'm going to do, the first step is actually put my bike in the right gear to take the wheel off. So you want to go ahead and make sure that your bike is in the small chain ring in the front, the smallest chain ring, not up here at the top. And then you want it to be on the smallest cog on your rear set here. So if it's not, when you get a flat tire, I mean, this is actually the smallest gear you could actually have. So you're not often riding in this gear unless you're going up a really steep hill. So oftentimes if you get off the bike to change a flat, first thing you want to remember is to put it in those gears. Okay, so once you have your bike in the right gear, you're going to want to release the back brake here by pulling up on this lever, making sure you've got as much space as possible. And then you're going to want to go ahead and take the skewer out of your bike. And you don't necessarily have to take it all the way out, but you know, it depends on how much of a hurry you're in. Sometimes it's good just to have as much room to move as possible. So then that wheel just kind of pops off. And I will tell you now, some bikes, much easier than others to get off. And there we go. So mine, actually you'll see, has dropouts that are on the bottom, so I can usually just push the tire down. Some bikes have rear dropouts, so you have to kind of pull the wheels out. So you have to know which bike you're kind of working with. Then what I'm going to do is very gently set the bike aside. And the goal is to try to make sure the chain doesn't totally fall off and that this very important piece right there, your rear derailleur, you want to make sure that's not hitting the ground. So as long as that's up and no major parts are scraping the ground, you should be pretty good to go. Okay, so we put our bike aside, and you know, you can actually as well, aside from lying it on the ground, you can, you know, put it upside down on the handlebars and the seat, but if you're on a gravel road, you don't necessarily want to scuff up your handlebars or your saddle. And a lot of times, especially if you're in a triathlon bike, you've got a water bottle up here, so it kind of makes it hard to do that. So in one manner or the other, put your bike aside and make sure that that rear derailleur is nice and protected. So you've got your toolkit down here. So here's some of the things that you're going to need for your toolkit in order to change your tire. First is a set of tire levers, which we'll be using. Spare tube, which when somebody says I got a flat tire, normally what that means is that the actual tire itself punctured and it punctured the tube. So quite often all you have to do is just change the tube inside, which is what we'll be doing. And then I also have some CO2, which is the air that we'll be using and the nozzle that we'll be using to refill the tire once we get it changed. Here we go. So the first thing we want to do is take one of the tire levers, and you see how let me show you up close, they all have a little lip on them there, and we want to use the lip with the hook side and go ahead and latch it onto one of the spokes. So you can see where I've got some space already. I'm going to grab another tire lever, same thing. And in this case, this tire seems to be coming off pretty easy. So you can see here, I'm just running, same thing, that lip side is up. I'm just running this right across the rim and you'll see that tire is coming right off the rim pretty easily. Now, I wish I could say that all tires were this easy. They are not. Sometimes you have to use a little more elbow grease, but we lucked out today. The next step is actually then taking the tube out. So this particular tube still has the nut here. We'll take that off. And then here's the magic. You take the tube out. So the tube comes out and the tire is actually still pretty much on that wheel. So all right, we're gonna change the tube, putting in the new tube. But first of all, actually, before you do that, good measure of safety is you want to kind of run your hand, and my hand's a little dirty from that chain grease, you want to kind of run your hand through the actual tire to see if you can see or feel where the puncture took place. A lot of times if you're riding on a road, you might get a little shard of glass in there, or a little sticker bush in there. So if you could actually feel where that puncture was made, then you can pull out whatever piece of debris was in there. Sometimes you can't find it, unfortunately. Sometimes it's just something you rolled over and it didn't pick it up in the tires. So, but this will save you from, if you do change the tube and you blow it up and all of a sudden you get another instant flat, it's usually because there's still some kind of piece of shard that's in your wheel. So to change the tube, we're gonna look for the insertion for the nozzle here. And then you have to make that noise too. There we go. Inserting the nozzle through there. There we go. And then, this is also very important, you want to make sure when you're putting that tube back in that you're doing it straight so that that tube isn't getting twisted up. You see this twist right there? We're gonna do our best to unravel that little guy to make sure that you don't get any pinches when you go to blow up the tire again. So, again, you're just putting that tube in there, and then as I go along, I like to kind of rework that tube or rework that tire onto the rim. Oh, that was way too easy. Oh, I act like I cheated now. That was way too easy. So the tire is back on the rim. And the next important step you want to do is kind of go around and visually make sure that you do not see any piece of that tube sticking out. If you do, when you go to blow it up, it's going to pinch on that rim. So you just want to make sure it's all kind of invisible inside. This appears to be, we're in good shape. We've got a couple of different mechanisms for re-inflating the tube. A lot of times people will carry a spare pump, either in your back pocket of your jersey. Sometimes people will actually go ahead and adhere it to their bike frame. This is great. It's convenient. We all know how to use a tire pump. It can be kind of cumbersome, especially if you're trying to carry as little weight as possible. But the good thing about it is it's fairly easy to use, and you just, like any normal tire, latch it on, and then you can start to pump up your tire. And you can already feel this one's getting pumped. If you don't have a pump with you, another great alternative is to carry some CO2 cartridges along with a nozzle. And this will actually, once you screw this in here and then hit the lever, it will actually deploy air into your tire. Fills it up really quickly, so you just want to kind of, the reason why I like this nozzle, even though it's a little bigger than some, the reason why I like this nozzle is because you actually do have a little bit of control over how much pressure you put in your tire. So this is another option if you don't have a pump. And it's obviously much easier to carry in your toolkit. Okay, so we successfully changed the two. We put air in the tire. Now it's time to put the wheel back on the bike frame. So we just kind of want to do what we did in reverse. And remember, we've got a couple of different entry points that we need to be cognizant of. We don't really want to bump that derailleur, but if you remember, we put it on the smallest cog in the back, so that's what we're aiming for when we put the wheel back on. And then the next point of entry is these brakes back here. Oops. See? Back on there. And we're going through the brakes. There we go. And then we're going to put our skewer back on. And again, just a reminder, you don't have to take this thing all the way off. Sometimes you just want to get it out of your sight. Make sure that's nice and secured. Lock it up. And then you want to go ahead and obviously clean up your mess that you created. You're going to go ahead and lock the brakes again. Give your wheel a big spin. It's rubbing, it's not rubbing the brakes. Make sure it's pedaling okay. And then once you clean up your mess, take your tube with you. Make sure you dispose of that properly, and you're back on the road.